Thursday morning, Courtroom 3A, Providence Municipal Court. Cameras roll. The gallery is packed. Tourists, students, regulars who watch court in Providence for Judge Frank Caprio's legendary compassion. 47 cases on the docket, parking tickets, noise complaints, simple stuff. Case Atashanaka 23, State vs. Defendant, fraudulent identification. A woman walks to the stand. She's calm, dressed professionally, carries herself like someone who's done this before. The officer explains his arrest with confidence. Fake ID, suspicious texture, obvious fraud. The gallery expects the usual. Caprio's gentle smile, a dismissed charge, maybe a viral moment. Instead, the judge asks his bailiff to bring something from his chambers. A leather notebook appears. Caprio opens it to a specific page. "Officer," he says quietly, "do you know who you arrested?" The courtroom goes silent. The cameras zoom in. What happens next will expose why some lessons take 25 years to teach. Providence, March 2019, Hope Street, 8:47 p.m. The traffic stop should have been routine. Broken taillight, quick warning, 5 minutes max. But when the officer, 8 years on the force, confident by the book, asked for her license, something felt wrong to him. The photo looked off. The texture wasn't right. He'd been trained to spot fakes, and this one, he was certain, was fake. The woman stayed calm. "That's my real ID," she said. "I'm an attorney." He looked at her car, a beat-up Honda with 140,000 miles, duct tape holding the back bumper. "Lawyers don't drive cars like this," he told her. She repeated that the ID was real. He didn't believe her. By 9:15 p.m., she was in handcuffs. By 10 p.m., she was fingerprinted, photographed, processed. Bail was set at $500. A friend posted it at midnight. When she collected her belongings, phone, wallet, keys, a worn leather notebook slipped from her bag. The desk sergeant barely glanced at it. She drove home in silence, made no calls, told no one. Pride is the easiest way to become blind. The leather notebook had a history. Suffolk University Law School, Boston, 1993 to 1996. Frank Caprio taught evidence and constitutional law as an adjunct while serving as Providence's Municipal Court Chief Judge, a position he'd held since 1985. He loved teaching, loved the sharp students who challenged him. One student stood out. First-generation immigrant, full scholarship, front row every session. She carried that leather notebook everywhere, margins crowded with case annotations, questions that pushed past the textbook. Her final exam was perfect, the only perfect score he'd given in 30 years. At graduation in May 1996, she handed him the notebook as a gift. "You gave me everything," she said. He handed it back. "You'll need this more than I will." She kept it. He never forgot her name. Years passed. She clerked for a federal judge in Boston, passed the bar on her first attempt in 1997, then disappeared into the work. He lost track of her after she moved back to Rhode Island. But he kept one thing, her name circled in red ink in his own notes, a reminder of what teaching could produce. The best students become invisible when they succeed quietly. The system moved without pause. The officer filed his report Wednesday morning, detailed, confident, recommending prosecution. The prosecutor glanced at it during lunch. ID fraud, standard charge, routine plea deal. A court summons went out Thursday. The woman opened it Friday evening and recognized the address immediately. Providence Municipal Court, Courtroom 3A. The same courthouse where Caprio presided. She hadn't seen him in 23 years, wasn't sure he'd remember her, wasn't sure he was even still there. Thursday morning arrived. She dressed carefully, drove to the courthouse alone. No lawyer, no family, no support. The gallery was full of cameras, tourists who traveled to watch Court in Providence, a show that had been running since 2007 and averaged over 300,000 viewers per episode. 46 cases were scheduled before hers. She sat in the back row, clutching the leather notebook, its spine cracked from decades of use. She watched Caprio work through the docket. The same patient voice, the same careful questions, the same compassion she remembered from law school. He hadn't changed. The question was whether the system had. Sometimes the hardest thing is to ask for help from someone who remembers when you didn't need it. The officer arrived early, reviewed his notes, felt confident. He'd watched Court in Providence before, knew Judge Caprio was soft, expected a dismissal or a small fine. Didn't matter. The arrest was clean. At 11:20 a.m., case number 23 was called. State vs. Defendant. Charge, fraudulent identification. The woman stood, walked to the stand. The officer explained the stop, broken tail light, routine check, suspicious ID. The texture was wrong, Your Honor. My training taught me to spot fakes. Caprio read the file, silently. He asked the standard questions. Priors. No. Employment. Attorney. The officer's face shifted. Surprise, then defensiveness. She said that, but the car... Caprio set the file down. Rhode Island had redesigned its licenses in 2015, adding specific holographic markers to prevent counterfeiting. The officer's training, it would later be revealed, came from a 6-hour seminar in 2014. Outdated materials the department never updated. He was certain he'd caught fraud. What he'd actually done was arrest someone for carrying the new design he'd never learned to recognize. Caprio leaned back, gestured to his bailiff. "Bring me something from my chambers," he said. The courtroom waited. Assumptions become facts when no one challenges them. The bailiff returned, holding a leather notebook. Caprio took it carefully, opened it to a page marked with a faded red circle. The cameras zoomed in. "Officer," Caprio said, his voice steady. "This woman graduated top of her law school class." He ran his finger down the margin notes. She clerked for a federal judge in Boston. She passed the bar on her first attempt in 1997. The officer's confidence drained visibly. Confusion first, then realization. The gallery murmured. The woman's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. Caprio held up the notebook so the cameras could see the handwriting in the margins, dense and precise. "This is her notebook. She gave it to me 25 years ago when she graduated from Suffolk Law." He paused. "I gave it back to her. She became exactly who I knew she would be." The courtroom erupted in whispers. According to Suffolk's records, the 1996 graduation class produced 312 attorneys. This woman was one of them. The officer realized his mistake in real time, on camera, recorded forever. His training hadn't just been outdated, it had been wrong. The difference between confidence and competence is evidence. Caprio gestured for the woman to approach the bench. The cameras followed her. "Why didn't you tell him you knew me?" he asked quietly. She took a breath. "Because it shouldn't matter who I know." The gallery went silent. Within hours, that exchange would be clipped, shared, viewed millions of times. Caprio asked about her career. "Public defender," she said. "Rhode Island. 12 years. She represented people who couldn't afford lawyers. Same courthouse, different floor. The officer had probably passed her in the hallways dozens of times. He'd never looked twice at defense attorneys. She'd been in his presence, in this building, handling cases, and he'd never recognized her because he never had to. Caprio asked his bailiff to verify her employment. The bailiff returned 2 minutes later. Public defender's office? Senior attorney, over 200 cases per year. The Rhode Island public defender system was chronically underfunded. Local news had been covering it for years. She could have called her office Wednesday night. Dozens of lawyers would have vouched for her. She chose silence instead. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. The officer stared straight ahead. Dignity is refusing to use power when humiliation would be easier. The prosecutor requested a sidebar, suggested dismissal, urged Caprio to move to the next case. Caprio refused. "No," he said. "We're finishing this." He turned back to the officer. "What made you think the ID was fake?" The officer explained. "Texture, lighting, photo quality." Caprio ordered a forensic verification check. The clerk ran the ID number through the state database. 2 minutes later, legitimate license, issued 2015. Standard procedure, no flags. The Rhode Island DMV confirmed it matched their records exactly. Caprio asked about the officer's training. The answer came slowly, a 6-hour seminar in 2014. The state had redesigned licenses in 2015, adding new security features, updating materials. The Providence Police Department never updated the training. Budget cuts from 2013 to 2018 had eliminated continuing education for veteran officers. The department assumed experience was enough. Caprio placed 2 IDs side by side on the bench, one from 2014, one from 2015. The differences were obvious once you knew what to look for. The officer saw them now. The courtroom saw them. The cameras captured every moment. This wasn't the first time the officer had made this arrest. It wouldn't take long to find out how many others there had been. Ignorance becomes cruelty when wrapped in authority. Caprio asked his clerk to pull the officer's arrest record, specifically ID fraud cases from the past 5 years. The clerk disappeared into the back office. The courtroom waited in tense silence. 5 minutes later, the clerk returned with a folder. 11 arrests, all since the 2015 redesign. 8 cases dismissed. 3 defendants pled guilty. Probably couldn't afford to fight, took the deal to avoid trial costs. The woman's case was number 11. The pattern was undeniable. A civil rights attorney sitting in the gallery stood up, walked to the bench, requested copies of the case files. The woman hesitated when the attorney handed her a business card. Caprio intervened. "Take the card," he said. The officer stood motionless. The prosecutor looked visibly concerned. Caprio ordered an immediate investigation into the department's training protocols, demanded the police chief appear for testimony. A police union representative, who'd been sitting unnoticed in the back, stood and requested an adjournment. Caprio denied it. "We're finishing this today." The Rhode Island ACLU had been tracking wrongful arrest patterns for years, documenting cases in public records. This wasn't random incompetence. It was a system-wide failure that had been ignored until someone finally couldn't. One case reveals what everyone pretended not to see. Caprio took a long breath. Then he spoke. "All charges are dismissed. This arrest is expunged from the record immediately." He looked directly at the woman. "Say, this arrest never happened. Your record stays perfect." The gallery stirred. Caprio wasn't finished. "The city of Providence will pay this woman $5,000 in compensation." The union representative objected. Caprio overruled him. "This is not negotiable." The officer stood frozen. The woman, for the first time in 90 minutes, allowed herself to cry. Silent tears she didn't bother wiping away. Caprio reached across the bench and slid the leather notebook toward her. "You gave this to me when you didn't need it," he said. "I'm giving it back when you do." The gallery erupted. The cameras captured the moment from 3 angles. Within 48 hours, the video would have over 4 million views. Municipal judges in Rhode Island have limited authority, but administrative fines fall within their jurisdiction. The woman accepted the notebook with shaking hands. "You taught me the law protects everyone," she said, voice breaking. Caprio nodded. "You taught me that believing it costs something." The courtroom emptied slowly. The case was over. The consequences were just beginning. Justice isn't kindness. It's refusing to look away. By Friday, the officer was placed on administrative leave pending review. The Providence Police Department announced a training overhaul within 24 hours, mandatory for all officers, focused on the 2015 ID redesign. The 8 previously dismissed cases were reopened for review. 3 people who'd pled guilty were contacted. They'd taken deals to avoid trial costs, avoid jail time, avoid risk. They were innocent. A civil rights lawsuit was filed within the week. The city settled 6 months later for $400,000, divided among the wrongfully arrested. The woman's story went national. NPR, CNN, local affiliates. Judge Caprio's show posted the full courtroom video. It became the most watched episode in the show's history. A screenshot circulated online. Her mug shot from Wednesday night beside footage of her standing in the courtroom Thursday morning. The contrast was devastating. The officer never returned to patrol. He was transferred to desk duty, then resigned in early 2020. The police chief implemented a new ID verification protocol and made retraining mandatory. Providence PD's policy changes were documented in city records, filed in March 2019, a direct result of this case. The woman was promoted to senior supervising attorney in the public defender's office. One person's courage becomes 1,000 people's protection. 3 months later, the woman gave an interview to a local news station. She explained her decision clearly. "I didn't call Judge Caprio because the system should work for everyone." She'd wanted to experience what her clients experienced: fear, humiliation, powerlessness. "If I have to name-drop a judge to be treated fairly, the system is broken." She held up the leather notebook during the interview, explained its history. Caprio's teachings from 1993 still guided her practice in 2019. She was now representing clients who'd been arrested by the same officer, cases being reviewed under the new protocols. The officer's career had ended, but the woman was clear. This isn't about revenge, it's about fixing what's broken before someone else gets hurt. According to Bureau of Justice statistics, public defenders handle over 80% of criminal cases nationally. Most defendants can't afford private attorneys. Most don't have connections. Most don't have leather notebooks tied to judges. They rely on a system that's supposed to work without favors. Caprio watched the interview from his chambers. He kept a photo from the courtroom on his desk, the moment he handed back the notebook. The best lessons are taught by students who become teachers. 1 year later, spring 2020, the woman was invited to speak at Suffolk University Law School's commencement. The ceremony was virtual. COVID-19 had shut down campuses nationwide, but it was recorded, archived, later shown in criminal justice classes across the country. She shared the story publicly for the first time with law students. "I was arrested for being exactly who I was supposed to be," she said. "The ID wasn't fake. The system's promise was." She held up the leather notebook during the speech, its spine still cracked, its margins still crowded with 25-year-old notes. "Judge Caprio taught me the law protects everyone. I had to prove it." The video became a teaching tool. The officer's story became a case study in what not to do. Providence PD now trains officers using footage from Caprio's courtroom. Caprio himself attended the virtual commencement, 74 years old, still presiding over municipal court, still teaching in his own way. The woman's practice had grown, over 300 cases per year now, specializing in wrongful arrest litigation. The hardest test is proving the system works when you're the one it fails. Present day. The leather notebook sits in the Providence Courthouse archives, displayed in a small exhibit titled "Justice Requires Courage." Visitors stop to read the annotations from 1993, then watch footage from the 2019 courtroom scene on a monitor beside the case. The officer's name has been redacted from all public materials, but the case itself remains a teaching tool. The notebook is open to a page where the woman wrote in her own hand decades ago. The law is only as good as those who enforce it. Judge Frank Caprio retired in 2024 at age 77. Court in Providence. Ended after 17 seasons in 2023, its legacy secure. Caprio still visits the courthouse regularly, stops by the exhibit, tells visitors the same thing. She was my best student, I was hers too. The woman's story taught him what he'd been teaching all along. Compassion isn't enough without accountability. The woman made partner at a civil rights firm in 2023, donated the notebook that same year. An inscription was added to the display, given in gratitude 1996, returned in justice 2019, preserved for truth 2023. The notebook that recorded how the law should work became proof that it could.